Your name and your age creates the past as well as the future. It's very difficult to see it, isn't it? It's because right from our childhood, right from the day we are born, we have been given a name. Our age has been calculated ever since that particular day, and that itself creates a past. Imagine a baby is born. It's blank slate, right? It doesn't know anything. I think it's better if we give a different example than ourselves. If you have brought a dog or a cat to your home and you're giving it a name, before you gave it a name, it didn't know its name. And once you started calling it that particular name, you had to do it for a certain period of time before it started reciprocating, before it started um, listening and hearing and responding to that particular name that you gave it to that particular animal. And we are not so different. We also are animals. We have come from that lineage and we recognize language. And human language is something that was created thousands of years ago. It's the language that we have now. It's very modern. We speak modern English, for example, one of the languages. There are multiple languages, but I will refer to English here. And but if you just take the language itself, it was created thousands of years ago, and we have been using it ever since that particular period of time. And imagine the brain that has learned for thousands of years that the words that a particular person is being called with is important to respond to it, right? And I don't know when did the age thing started in humanity, but you can see it right now in yourself. If if you're born in 1990, for example, and it's about 36 years, so your brain would definitely have that particular 35 years of 36 years of the past that you have lived, right? So it's it's quite a very peculiar thing if you look at it. The past cannot exist if you do not recognize yourself with the name that you're given. Because once you start to recognize that your name itself is the identity of you, then the whole of the past just loosens up. It's, of course, there are a lot of other factors also with the past, but if just one small thing is done, it really brings in a lot of openings for other illusions. Yes, the name and age are illusions too. Because if you see, and a lot of people will not understand this, I'm not talking in terms of not being given a name, not being called a name, or not using a name, but we need it for documentation purposes. We need to recognize somebody. We need it to call somebody, right? Um, Else it would be very difficult to identify people. In that scenario, it's important. But what does usually happen with the names and your age? When you buy your own, or in social aspects as well, you are referred to a particular name. And for example, if it's your birthday, if you're 30 years old and you're celebrating your birthday, your whole 30 years of experience comes to your mind. What you did for 30 years, where did you spend your birthdays, what life you have had, right? All these are past memories. And if you do not see that the center of the self has a very strong hold in your name itself, and that's a very strong identity to have. And if one sees this, that the name that you have is not you, it cannot be you because it's a language that humans have created. And to go deeper into the mind, you need to understand all the things that the mind has created. And the mind has created languages, mind has created numbers. These are the two main things that we run with. And research is called data, but Essentially, it's language and numbers. And there are a lot of fields. The whole of science is based on these particular two aspects. But as a person, if you want to go deep into your own mind and see what the mind's contents are, you first need to dig into your name. You first need to ask yourself, what if I didn't have a name? What would that feel like? What if you didn't have an age? Then what would happen is it would just become a very transparent life, because if you didn't have a name, then everything you identified yourself with just loosens its grip. It has to loosen its grip once you start de-identifying with your name. And this is not a negative process. It's it's a thing where you really observe all the things that has happened to your name within your own brain, within the processing of it, your mental activity throughout your life. And this could be called analysis if you want to call that, but it's basically diving deep into what your mind is made of, what your mind's content is. For example, if you take your own name, your name has been used for education purpose, for your parents to call you that, for society to call you that name, for your friends to identify you as a person, for for you to do anything in the world, right? Name is essential in terms of that. But when it comes to the inner world, to your own inner world, that name has also been associated with a lot of memories. And if you don't see this one fact, it's really impossible to get into the depths of the mind, because your name is something that a lot of people would not talk about because they would just use it. And you yourself would not see it because it's language, and language is embedded in us right throughout right since childhood. And it doesn't matter what age you are at, if you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, doesn't matter. Your name is something that sticks with you throughout life. And I've seen this a lot where in spiritual organizations where I think this happens with monks, where they change their name completely, and they might say they have a particular reason to do that, but changing a name from one to the other is the same thing. It's a process of thought itself. And if you see in your own mind activities, right, you will see that the whole process of how the brain works, how your mind functions, is you become the center of that. And because this whole thing, what you've done from your um, birth, whatever you've gone through in your life, and whatever you're experienced in life, right? And what you have become now, till date, till right now, that the the mind associates it completely with all that particular timeline that you had from here to here. That is from your birth till date. And what is it? It's your age. And it's something I figured out a few years ago, but I thought of sharing this because I don't really think people think about this thing, because it's such a subtle thing, right? You are so identified with it. And age is something that I myself have had a timeline with. And I think that's how everybody's mind functions. If you look at it, if you're born in 1990, right? If you have identified your point of birth as 1990, yes, and you are 30 years and it is about 36 years, if you say, and it's 2026 now. So there has to be a history before 1990. There has to be a future after 2026, right? No matter which year you are in, there tends to be a future with the dates, with the years, because that's how the whole society is built into. And it's something you can't run away from. But what we actually can do is identify that these are the facts that we only use for um, documentation and for social aspects. it really has no reality in itself, especially in the psychological realm, in the psyche, and it has no place in that. It should not have any place there because um it's a creation of thought, and the language is a creation of thought. The numbers are a creation of thought, and it's been used in science in our day-to-day life, but in our psyche, it need not have any place. That frees up a lot of space, trust me. It helps you in identifying your center of the self because everything revolves around it. So maybe if this is the first time you're watching a video that says something like this, then the self has it's part of the psyche. It's like a bundle of memories that you experience from your birth till date. But if you look at how time functions, right, that past doesn't exist now, but you are here at this particular moment right now. How time functions is it's a creation of thought. And because you think that 1990 till 2026, this timeline, and that timeline has been created by thought itself. So all the sufferings that we have, everything that we have gone through in our lives is deeply associated with these particular timelines that we have, and the name, and all the memories that we have gone through. It's impossible to be free of sufferings if we do not see what the self is. Just come face to face with what the self is made of. There are a lot of names given to the self. It's been called I, it's been called self, it's been called um consciousness, or so many other aspects. But words are really something that people get confused very often. And you should have a knack where you identify that people are using those particular words in their own context. And I'm using the word self to identify the your name and your age because the mind is something that you can't really quantify. It's something that is not quantifiable. It's you can think of numbers, you can think in words, but those words are just the constructs of the mind. So to go deeper place to really uh, live with depth, right? One has to see beyond this. One has to first see that these things exist first, that you actually have an identity with your name, that you have an identity with your age, and then you can see that how your brain constructs all your thoughts. Because the language, your name, for example, was given by your parents, say, and that particular naming system, right? It's a very old tradition where your parents select a particular name for you, you're given that particular name, and you run with it for your entire life. But even your parents had a particular language that they knew with their entire life, right? And they selected your name based on what they thought was best for the children. And it's again a creation of thought. And your parents, as you grew up, would have talked about your age, would have celebrated your birthdays, and your friends would have celebrated your birthdays. You would have talked about age a lot. Age not only in when you're born, but also about where you are now. So if you see, if the age is a past, right, and you are here, you would see that you're always talking about the past in reference to your age, your date of birth, and you're always talking about or thinking about your future also in reference to your age. So if you really see that age actually does not have a reality outside of all the practical purposes. It does not have a place in a psyche. When you really see this as an identity of yourself, there's a flip that happens that you really stop identifying your life with your timelines that you have, be it your 1998 date of birth or your current age. And It's very important because I myself have gone through that process where I've identified that particular timeline that I must have been this, this, and this. And if that doesn't happen, then there would be a lot of suffering, right? And this is what a lot of people go through in life because right from childhood, we have been trained to see that there are a particular timeline that you're supposed to do particular kind of things. And if that doesn't get met, and trust me, most things don't get met. And when you come across those particular situations or you're in a particular pattern in life or a phase in life where you really start to make decisions out of because of your age and because certain things didn't happen in the future and the mind really you go into that insanity mode where you start to do something just because of your age. And I've seen a lot of people do this. Have myself done it because age is something if you have not seen its reality right, it really starts to affect your life because then you're functioning in time, and time is something that it really puts you in a very anxious mode. And when it comes to anxiety and all this panic modes that we get into, timeline is something that really stresses a lot, stresses people completely. And take for example our day-to-day activities when it comes to work, when it comes to personal life, we function based on time. We have a 24 hours time, and we we just organize a whole day with it about work, about personal life, and everything, right? And it's necessary up to a certain extent. But when you don't see the reality of the time, right? For example, if you don't see that in reality the 24 hours don't exist, this a rotation of the earth that happens, but we as humans have given a number to it, 24 hours, so that there's a global organization and there's a global sync about timelines and how we arrange our life according to it, because we have to work with people across the world. And that is one reason when the world clock were invented and when the current time system was accepted as a global measure. um, Even the year, for example, if you look at it, it's it's 2026 now, but we have a history about that since we started documenting, but it doesn't have a reality in itself. It doesn't mean that it has at that 2026 years have passed away, or it doesn't have a very solid uh, number to it. It really doesn't say anything because you have BC and you have AD before that. It's like a division right there. And that was based on Christianity, and the whole world accepted it. That's a different topic altogether. But you, we can just be aware that 2026 is there for practical purposes, but you need not identify your whole life based on that particular four-letter numbers because that really creates a sense of urgency. It creates a sense of panic into the mind. And to be um, to go deeper into the mind, to really see the contents of the mind, it's very important to see that your name does not define you. What defines you is this particular moment, and because the past really does not exist. It's something that is already moved long back. Even a few moments ago moved away long back. That doesn't mean that um, there's a time attached to it. Its life is just an unending flow. It just flows. Before languages and before numbers existed, don't you think that there 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 was a moment before we humans started timing it? So I think it's high time we recognize this particular illusion that time doesn't exist in our psyche, and we have given numbers, and we have given language, and we have given names to a lot of things that just act as labels to identify. but that identity in the mind is very dangerous. So, and I had written um, something that I'll just read out about this particular aspect of numbers. You are taught numbers, dates, months, years. Every year after your birthday is celebrated. You blow off candles of 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 11, and before you know it, your brain is already set in stone that past exists, that you have lived for so many years, that your parents are this old, that your siblings are these many years older or younger than you, that your birthday holds so much importance. Now you know birthdays of so many people. The days of the week that you go to school is etched day in and day out in your memory. The months, the seasons, the year has become a reality in as less as 5 to 10 years of age after repeated exposures. And you're rewarded with positive feedbacks each time you remember and talk about the past days, weeks, months, and years. And this is your memory that's being recreated by your thought. And the whole education system is based on numbers too, because you keep progressing from year to year. All of this combined, personally and educationally, along with the friends you interact with, solidifies the illusions of the dates, the days, the weeks, the months, the years, the history of it all as a reality. You live in it for years, and now you have a brain that actually believes that the numbers are real. Your age becomes all important, and time is embedded in your brain slowly but surely. Birthday has no reality in it, but it sets up an imaginative illusion in the mind that has a certain four-letter number fixated as before and after. If you were born in 1990, then there must exist a timeline before and after that, isn't it? 2026 isn't something that is actually real. It is just a number we have used for organizing documents, etc. But psychologically, in the psyche, it creates the hallucination of 2026 and the age being a reality, which is nothing but an illusion.